Okay, so this is the case that we have in front of you on the screen. It's about Falcon Limited, which currently has only equity in their capital structure, 1 million shares of 10 rupees each, which means they have 10 million. And they want to raise additional 10 million for financing an expansion project for which they're considering two options. One plan is to go for equity shares, which is another 1 million shares of 10 each. The other option is the debt one. So carry the issue more debentures, which carries 14% interest annually. We start with part A, which says that the EBIT is 2 million and we have to get to the EPS of every alternative. Now EBIT is 2 million, which means 20 lakh rupees. Okay. Now in the first option is equity financing. In the current capital structure, they only have equity. So if additionally also they are going for more equity, they are diluting the stake. There's no question of any interest there. So the interest is zero. So the profit before tax remains at 20 lakh rupees. The taxes have been given to be at 50%. So we take 50% here, which is 10 lakh rupees. So the PAT comes to 10 lakh rupees. Number of shares, kya hoga? We already have 1 million shares, right? 1 million shares already hai, and you are raising another 1 million shares. So you will have 22 million shares, which is nothing but 20 lakh shares. So your EPS is 0.5, right? Now, what happens in case of debt financing? So EBIT pe koi farak nahi aata. Remember, capital structure has no bearing on EBIT because EBIT is a result of your effort. Now here, ये जो 1 million है, which is 10 lakh rupees, 1 million, sorry, 10, it is planning to raise an additional capital of 10 million, right? Now, this 10 million के ऊपर you have to pay 14% interest, which is 1.4 million, which is 14 lakh rupees. Right? So you now have a PBT of 6 lakhs. इसके ऊपर taxes 3 lakhs. So PAT becomes 3 lakhs. Now number of shares remains at 1 million only. There is no equity dilution here. So your EPS becomes 0.3. Now in this particular case, which appears to be a better option for financing, raising money by equity or raising money by debt? By equity seems better in this case. Why? Because we are still probably at lower levels of EBIT. अब suppose हम EBIT बढ़ाते हैं, will the answer remain the same or the answer changes? That's what we need to see and why. So what I will do now, I will again copy and paste this here below. Right? Now we will do the exercise for 4 million, which is 40 lakhs. Now I'm changing nothing else. So your EPS becomes 1 in case of equity financing. And in case of debt financing, it becomes 1.3. Now, which is better? Debt becomes better. So what does it tell you? It tells you that financing decisions are relative to your levels of operating income and may change as your levels of operating income changes, and your EPS will also be different depending upon the financing decision you choose, isn't it? Now, what we will do is we will keep a we will we'll do a sensitivity analysis between EBIT and EPS. So in the current state, let's say we start with this one. Equity plan EPS and debt plan EPS. So equity plan EPS is 1. Debt plan EPS is 1.3. Now, suppose I want to do an analysis where I will be testing what will be the EPS at different levels. Understand what I'm saying? कि अगर suppose मेरा EBIT change होता है, starting from let's say 5 lakh rupees, then or rather 4, 6, etc. and go up to 60 lakh rupees. ठीक है, तो मैं 2-2 लाख के इंटरवल पे इसको आगे बढ़ा रहा हूँ, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Now I want to find out under each of these options what will be my EPS for the debt plan and what will be my EPS for the equity plan. Right? So this is my base case. I can use the data table functionality now of Excel. So suppose मैं इसको ये करता हूँ. I go to data, what if analysis, data table. Now my inputs, what is my input? My input is EPS. Sorry, input is EBIT. And EBIT is arranged in a column. So I will choose the column input cell and I will link it to this EBIT. क्योंकि यहाँ पे input change होगा तो बाकी सब अपने आप change होना चाहिए. And I press OK. So the moment I do that, what do you see? I get my EPS for all the levels. यहाँ पे आपको क्या दिख रहा है इधर? In the initial part, when my EBIT is on the lower levels, which seems to be a better plan? Equity seems to be a better plan because EPS goes on increasing and debt may EPS also. You get the point, right? शुरू में हमेशा आप देखोगे कि equity seems to be a better plan than debt until a particular point is reached. और उस point पे there is indifference. ये देखो इधर, ये वाला point है वो. At this point, there is indifference, isn't it? इस point पे EPS is the same whether you raise money by equity or you raise money by debt. उससे पहले, when you are at lower levels of EBIT, equity seems to be a better option. But the moment you cross or you breach this threshold, what happens? The debt starts to become a better option. Why? Because financial leverage now comes into action. And that's why there is it magnifies the earnings for the shareholders. You can also, look at this by way of this point is called an indifference point. So I can clearly form an equation here to get to the same levels of EBIT mathematically, right? X, if you take EBIT as X minus I, right? EBIT minus interest into 1 minus tax rate divided by number of shares should be equal to EBIT minus interest into 1 minus tax rate divided by number of shares, both the options. Solve for X, you will get the same result, 28 lakh rupees. You can try it out. Now let's try to construct a graph. So suppose I construct a graph between EBIT and EPS. See what happens if I take the okay. This is EBIT and EPS. Now I can add, this is for the equity option. Now I can add the debt option also. So I am going to name this series as equity plan. And I can add another series. I can call it as debt plan. X values is your independent variable, which I'm going to take as EBIT. Y values is the dependent variable, which I'm going to take as the EPS for the debt plan. And I press OK. Now look at this. What do you see? Is there an observation you have here? Now look here. In the initial part, I can actually add a legend also here to see which plan belongs to which. So if I take a legend here on the right hand side, you will see that the blue line is for the equity plan and the orange line is for the debt plan. Okay. Now, in the initial part, until you reach the break-even point or the threshold of 28 lakh rupees, both of them are having the equity is obviously higher. Equity plan is giving you a higher EPS than the debt plan. लेकिन equity की gradient जो है वो उतनी steep नहीं है. The moment you cross that 28 lakhs of indifference point, what happens? The debt shoots up. The debt plan will give you higher EPS than the equity plan, and you can see that equity has a more or less a flatter gradient, but the debt has a steeper gradient. That's why it is said that financial leverage will magnify the returns for the shareholders. There is another way in which you can arrive at this indifference point. Indifference point में क्या होगा? The delta has to be equal to 0, isn't it? Abhi delta is not 0. What is the delta here? Currently equity minus debt का delta क्या है? EPS का negative 0.3. When you have to arrive at an indifference point, indifference basically means at what level of EBIT the EPS will be equal in both the plans, which means your delta will become equal to 0. तो हमें वो ऑब्जेक्टिव अचीव करना है यहाँ पे, right? How will we achieve that objective? You can use the goal seek functionality of Excel, and you can set this cell here to the value of 0 by changing my EBIT. That's it. Can you see you are getting the same number 28 lakhs? दोनों का EPS सेम है 0.7. यहाँ पे भी आपको वही दिख रहा है. And at this point, your delta is 0, which means this is the point of indifference. Is it clear? So this was about the EBIT EPS analysis. Thank you.